If you're hearing this episode around the time it comes out, it means I'm taking some time off after the birth of my son. I've recorded these ahead of time and will most likely not be available on social media for the next few weeks. But you can still get the story behind twice a week if you're subscribed to the podcast. Consider this series to be like a substitute teacher. We won't go as in-depth as in previous episodes, but we'll briefly touch on a number of different topics in each show. The series focuses on Billy Joel's song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," and the headline-making events and people he mentions. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind We Didn't Start the Fire, 1957 to 1958. In Little Rock, Arkansas, 9 black students enrolled in the formerly all-white Central High School after the Supreme Court ruled segregated public schools were unconstitutional in 1954, which we also talked about in the episode The Story Behind the Stand in the Schoolhouse Door. On the first day of classes, the National Guard was called to bar the students from entering. A few weeks later, on September 25th, President Eisenhower ordered federal troops to escort the Little Rock Nine to start their first day of classes. Boris Pasternak was a Russian poet and writer who won the Nobel Prize for his novel, Dr. Zhivago, which was banned in the Soviet Union because officials, including Premier Khrushchev, thought the novel romanticized the pre-revolution Russian upper class. The book was then turned into an Academy Award-winning movie in 1965. Mickey Mantle, born in 1931, is considered one of baseball's greatest, playing for the New York Yankees from 1951 through his retirement 18 years later. He could bat both left and right-handed, and was named the American League's MVP 3 times, his second being in 1957, which was referred to in We Didn't Start the Fire. And over the course of his career, he hit a total of 536 home runs. Jack Kerouac didn't meet commercial success as a writer until his novel On the Road was published, which was based on Kerouac's road trip with friends searching for meaning. The novel was seen as the epitome of the Beat Generation. When the Soviet Union launched the first orbiting satellite Sputnik in October 1957, Americans were worried the Soviets had a lead in the arms race and could use this technology as a way to possibly take control of third world nations. President Eisenhower began putting more resources behind the U.S. space program, starting what became known as the space race. You may remember Chow and Lai, or Zhou and Lai, from the story behind ping pong during Forrest Gump February, when we talked about ping pong diplomacy and how communication between Communist China and the West began to be explored following China's souring of relationships with the Soviet Union. But before that, he was a moderate leader during Mao Zedong's rule in 1958, when he argued against Zedong's Great Leap Forward initiative, which banned private farming in favor of state-owned farms and crops. The Bridge on the River Kwai was a British-American World War II movie set in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, starring William Holden, Alec Guinness, and Jack Hawkins. Even though it was a fictional story, it focused on the real-life construction of a railway bridge, despite the Allies' plans to destroy it. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, in 1957. When Muslims in Lebanon began criticizing the Lebanese president Camille Kaman, who is also a Christian, for maintaining ties to the Western world, riots began occurring in the country, prompting Kaman to ask U.S. President Eisenhower for help. U.S. Marines were sent to Lebanon in what was called Operation Blue Bat, and remained in the city of Beirut for 3 months. Charles de Gaulle, a French World War I veteran, was called out of retirement to be elected as the leader of France following a remote from French colonists in Algeria, leading de Gaulle to agree to head a new government called the Fifth Republic, which is still in place today. California baseball refers to May 28, 1957, when the Brooklyn Dodgers, who we talked about in the previous episode, and the New York Giants baseball teams moved to California to become the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants, respectively. There was a caveat for the deal to be made by the National League owners. Either both teams had to move, or neither. While California rejoiced, New York was heartbroken. Starkweather Homicides refers to 19-year-old Charles Starkweather and his 14-year-old girlfriend Carol Ann Fugit, who went on a killing spree, killing between 11 and 15 people, beginning with Carol's parents when they denied Charles entry into the home. When family members became suspicious, the couple went on the road, killing those who crossed their path. When they were finally caught, Starkweather pleaded innocent by reason of insanity, but was tried and sentenced to death. Despite claiming she had broken up with Starkweather before the murders happened and was kidnapped as part of the killing spree, Fugit was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. She was paroled in 1976. The murders have been the basis for music, books, and movies, including 1973's Badlands and 1994's Natural Born Killers. Thalidomide was a common drug given to pregnant women in their first trimester to help with sleeplessness and morning sickness in the late 1950s through the early 1960s. When babies began being born with misshapen limbs and underdeveloped organs, a German newspaper reported the drug was likely the cause, and the drug was taken off the market in Germany, followed quickly thereafter by Britain and other countries. Of the 10,000 children born with birth defects, many didn't survive through childhood, and it's estimated only 3,000 are still alive today. In 2006, the FDA approved the drug for use to prevent nausea in chemotherapy patients and for treating painful skin conditions. Thanks for listening to The Story Behind. In the next episode, we'll explore the years of 1959 through 1960, as referenced in Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire. For more information, visit thestorybehindpodcast.com. And you can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at StoryBehindPod. But I can't promise many updates since I'm currently on a break for the birth of my son. But be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.